Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I wanted to talk about online dating and the pitfalls. What are the pitfalls? Well, I've also put in our subtitle, works both ways. What am I talking about? Well, what we tend to see the emphasis on is scamming, unscrupulous, skillful, money extorting females. There they are, they're out there, they're predators, they're the spider saying come into my web, and they're beautiful, of course, and they're beautiful pictures, and they're online, and they're good actresses, and all of this, and of course in among their sitting at their desk and their computer in the early hours of the morning, lonely as hell, you've got these gullible, vulnerable men who fall for their lines. It's a little bit like the sirens and Ulysses. Remember I told you about Ulysses. Ulysses, when he was on his return, he was passing these famous islands, and on these islands there were women who sang so beautifully that sailors passing in their ships would wreck their boats on the shores of the islands of the sirens, and then the sirens would turn them into pigs. Well, a lot of women think that men are pigs anyway, but we won't go into that. Okay, we're not into the battle of the sexes here. So what's the dangers? Well, the dangers are on both sides. Online dating, it's what well, for one thing, at least Photoshop has had its claws drawn, because now you have the online Skyping, so you can see the person and you can enjoy a certain kind of face-to-face communication with that lady, with that man. But of course then you've got stage makeup and you've got all kinds of other things. So even that is really not a conclusive way of deciding whether the person that you're looking at is the person that you would actually meet and hopefully on a good day with the wind behind you marry. So what is actually happening as far as the man goes? Well, I have to admit to some of this myself, in the when I was in the UK, when I was in the US, I'm sorry, I'd come from the UK and I was in the US, I had very little prospects. I was self-employed, I had a young child, I wasn't living any high life, drove around in a little bit of, well, a reasonably nice truck, but nothing great, and I would have given anything for a partner. Well, because I didn't believe that anybody in the States would be interested, I looked online, and I had various cyber relationships in which I had hopes that they would bear fruit. None of them did. I never met anybody online back in those old days, even though eventually I did go to China and meet someone face to face. Even that was not a conclusive indication or guarantee that the relationship I was entering would become the rest of my life, because it certainly didn't. And as my mother always used to say when I was arguing with my brother or my sister, she will say, it's going to end in tears, I'm telling you. And of course my little foray into China did end in tears, but I'm not here to cry, even though I'm sorry, a little bit, I lost control there. Well, anyway, the man who is at his computer and he's looking at endless photographs of, if he's looking, let's deal with the Philippines because that's where we are, that's where people who are looking at this will probably be interested in hearing some thoughts about that. You're looking at endless lovely looking ladies for the most part, even though you can scan through them very, very quickly, and then you can put your finger on one that you would like to write to. Now in the old days you had a situation where, because you were going not on the computer, you were actually writing a letter and you were sending it off, and what you got was an address. So you bought an address. You saw a lovely woman who you thought was sincerely looking for a partner, and in your lonely state, and don't tell me that you're not lonely, because if you're not lonely, what are you doing online looking at the faces of women who say that they're interested in meeting you? Of course you're lonely. I was lonely. It's the truth. It's the way that it is. And there are lots of people out there who are lonely and are seeking a genuine partner online. Lots of people find it. Lots of people don't. I think the ratio is very high for meeting someone and marrying a foreign woman. If you're, and I'm speaking from the viewpoint of I'm a foreigner, I'm an expat, and apparently the success rate within marriages of Westerners meeting a foreign woman, 73, I was quoted 73%, which I probably would go along with, which in America that would be very high. That would be a very high number of successes against the number that get married. So you're looking, and you used to get an address, and then you'd wait, and you get a letter back and all of that, and it went on, and you paid and you paid and you paid, and at the end of it the woman might not even be who is writing. Or, as I saw when I went to China especially, I went to the agency, and I went into that agency. If you're thinking about going to China, I went into that agency, and they eventually, over a couple of weeks that I was there, they knew me very well, and I would go in and I would look, and while I was looking I would see how the agency worked. And they had various ladies who were good in English, good on the computer, and they actually had Chinese ladies. Well, of course Chinese ladies. You wouldn't be sitting in China and watching Turkish women, would? Anyway, these people would come in with a letter, and they would sit with an interpreter who would be at the computer and very fast on their typing, and they would help them to translate that letter into a letter which could be mailed to their prospective partner in whatever country. So that was how it worked, and I soon realized that the people, the women who translated these letters, put a great deal of themselves into it too. So you were not actually getting to know the person necessarily that you thought you were writing to. So there's all kinds of things that can go right and wrong. Well, it ended in tears as far as I was concerned, but for a lot of other people, and I saw someone in Fort Myers, I saw someone who had married a Chinese girl who was absolutely wonderful, and he counted himself the luckiest man alive. And I think it probably was then, and that was before I took over and married Beth. Let it be said. So, back to the present day, you'll be looking at lovely ladies by the score, and then you would find that when you put your own photo on there, no matter what you looked like, if you gave any kind of coherent profile, then you would have responses, and it would probably be in the hundreds, who knows, depending, I guess, on how guapo you are. That's good looking. So you would get these responses, and they would be from all over the Philippines, and you would read them and you would believe them or not. And you would soon find that even if you're 65, there's always a 17-year-old who is more than happy to marry you tomorrow or this afternoon if you can get it in time. And it happens like this. So the risks for the man are very clear. You'll have somebody who is going to milk you for money before you ever get over there. They're going to ask you for money. I've had a friend recently who has written to me, and he said that he had found a very young lady who obviously was beautiful, and it had been going along quite well, and then she had said to him just out of the blue, I would like 10,000 pesos in order to invest in this venture which will return your money in 3 months. And then no sooner had that settled than her cousin, which may or may not be true, her cousin had also written to him and said, look, there's this thing that you can get involved in. And then he put forward some kind of thing which was not only against the law but against social security and a lot of other risks. So my friend bowed out and unfriended and got on with his life talking to another lady. And so that's how it can affect a man. The difficulty is in trying to find someone who is genuine. We've made videos about some of the indications that you can go on and some of the ways that you can try to aim in the first place. It's not just about finding a target. You have to be looking in the right place. You know, there are targets all over the place, and if you're a devout Christian, then there's no point in looking in the bars for a woman, is there? Why would you do that? Not if you're really a devout Christian. You'd probably look in church. And why, if you were a Buddhist, why would you look in a Catholic church? And if you're a Catholic, why would you look in a Buddhist seminary or whatever they call it? So you need to focus your energy in an area which will bring to you a woman or a partner who is of the like mind. And we've been into all of that. The difficulty, the challenges in finding through the internet, aiming in cyberspace, one that is actually true. And the downfall, the ups and downs of that are clearly that you can be scammed or not. Right, but what's the risks on the other side for a Filipina? And we may have touched on this, but not in depth. Now, for a Filipina, they could be talking to someone that looks really as if that, well, it looks like somebody that they would really love to be with. And that person may love writing, may write lovely letters, computer type letters, may be wonderful on paper, and say, well, I'm going to come out and see you soon, and that soon becomes not quite so soon, and then it goes on a little, and then it goes on a little more. And what may actually be happening is that you, as a Filipina, have actually found someone who is not really looking. And this is difficult to get this, but there are people out there who are lonely, who enjoy communicating to people at various parts of the world, and they will be communicating to more than you. Could that be possible? Could anybody want to communicate to more than you? Well, I've had it, I can tell you it's true. So, face up to that, and be careful how you target your attention, where you're going to have Cupid shoot his arrow. because you could become emotionally involved with someone who has nothing left to give you, may not be able to afford to come out here to see you, and all kinds of other things that may be there. He may actually be married. He may be married, and if not married, he may be committed in some way, have some kind of baggage which will prevent him from committing to you. Now, I'm not talking about anybody that I know, okay, just in case you say, oh yes, I know who he's talking about now. No, you don't. I'm talking completely over a full spectrum of online dating. This is what can happen. Now, that's on a good day, with everything going for you. You're still home, you're still safe. Now, what happens if you find someone who is prepared to bring you to America or to the UK or somewhere else, and you end up being a maid, sex partner, but not really a full partner? Now, there is the risk, as we've been talking very recently about OFWs. Well, there's another kind of OFW, and that's the unpaid one, that gets married to someone who is not going to respect them, is not going to love them and cherish them, and is just going to use them in some pretty nasty ways. That's the bad news as far as you, the Filipino, go. Now, I'm sure that there are people out there who will say, I have a wonderful marriage, and I know this because I've had terrific letters from Filipinos who are very, very happy, and I love getting those letters, and I give them prominence. And if it's written really nicely and it's an eventful letter, I like to read those letters out because it does spread a message of love. But just a warning is that it can go wrong. Now, one thing that I do like to stress, and I've learned this from coming out to the Philippines, is that Filipinos are extremely family oriented. Now, you may be a foreigner out there saying, well, I'm family oriented, you know, I see my mum and dad every 3 months, or sometimes because they're living in Boston and I'm living in New York, I even go to see them, or if they're in an old folks home, I like to go there once a month. The last day of the month, I go and see them and spend I don't know, sometimes as long as half an hour or an hour with them. So I understand the family. You don't understand. You have no idea of how family-oriented a Filipina is. They love their family. They help their family. They are involved in their family. And even though this is a generality that may not always be 100%, I bet it's an incredibly high percentage of that will make my words true. Now, the Filipina has to understand that when they go abroad, they will be alone. Now, they'll have to find their support group by going to a church, by going to Filipinos don't take long. Believe me, Filipinos will make a family where there is none. They may not be totally accepted by the family of the expat, by the foreigner, and they may not be able to cope with being a foreigner like, say, I am. But they'll find a family of sorts, and they'll go to a church, they'll go to some kind of a group, they'll do something. They'll have get-togethers with people at work if they find a job, and they'll become family-oriented in a way, but it won't be the same as blood relations. And if you're a Filipina or you're not overseas Filipina partner, you're going to have to live with this. Now, you may be, and I will put this in right at the end, you may be making a sacrifice, or making sacrifices with a partner who is not actually that interested in helping you to put a nephew through college, or help a brother do the paperwork for becoming a seaman, or all of these things which are very familiar to a Filipino, Filipina. And he may not be interested in doing that. He may say, well, sorry, but we just can't afford that. And we've had a case of that where the girl married a man in America. She went over to America. She's very happy. I think they may even be having a child. And the aged mother and father that they left behind, who were expecting that they would have some support, are sadly disappointed. And that support, which they had them thinking almost like wealthy people, well, we've got a foreigner in the family now, they've been disappointed, because the foreigner that their daughter chose was just an ordinary guy. He wasn't the owner of a fishing industry. He wasn't the owner of a corporate body, or he wasn't a CEO. He was maybe just been an ordinary guy working in a video shop, for all I know, on a minimum wage. And he actually, truly, will not have the money to be able to support a family back here in the Philippines. So it will be down to the hard work of the Filipina if she can get his agreement to send some of her money, a large portion of her money, back home to help with her family, who may be struggling to feed themselves. So everybody has to think very carefully. The online dating is a love life built on shifting sands. Be very careful. It can go terribly wrong for both partners. Both partners. Okay? Worst case scenario, some people are getting killed. Worst case scenario, some people are getting left, abandoned after the green card comes through. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong. You know, if you're overweight, over age, and you think that this beautiful 20-year-old that just threw her arms around you when you first met is going to stay with you, you may be right and you may be wrong. As Billy Joel says, you may be right and I may be wrong. Something like that. Well, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Food for thought, I hope. Bye for now. And if you have someone who you think might benefit from hearing this, what I've said, then share. Bye for now.